Welcome to today's episode of the Support Insights podcast. I'm your host, Bryony Mulkern, Community Manager at Senticel. Today, my guest is Emma Chipperfield, Product Support Manager at Figma. Emma's going to be talking us through how in her time at Figma, she's been focused on building out specialised teams within support. We're going to have a little chat about what exactly that looks like, what these segments of specialisations are, and the results of structuring a support team in this way. If you're interested in looking at how you can optimise your support function, then stick around. It should be a really good episode today. I'm super excited. Let's get into it. Hello, Emma. Thank you very much for joining me on today's podcast. It's lovely to have you.
Hey, Bryony. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Really excited to chat today.
No problem at all. My pleasure. Do you mind just starting by giving me a little bit of an introduction on you and your role at Figma?
Yeah, of course. I am Product Support Manager here at Figma. I've been at Figma coming up to maybe 8 months or so. It's hard to keep track because it's one of those places where it feels like an incredibly short amount of time and also a long amount of time because so much happens and so much going on, but it's also a joy. So shows that it's gone very quickly. Yeah, I manage a team of specialists working through product support questions of the tool and the platform.
Awesome. I know the feeling where the time it feels like you're there for a long time, but also a blink of an eye because everything's moving so quickly. So prior to joining Figma, you were actually at WeWork for quite some time. Do you mind telling me a little bit about how you've sort of progressed over the years?
Yeah, of course. I was there for over 7 years, which is a pretty long time for somebody in my generation, I feel like. Most people are like 1 or 2 years and moving around. But yeah, it was fantastic. I kind of started at the company when there were just a couple of locations in London and maybe about 10 or 8 employees in London. But I saw a lot of growth potential. I could see how it was growing so much in the US, and there was a lot of hype around it, not just being a co-working space, but the community element that was the driving force behind it. Yeah, little did I know it was going to be this huge business that it is now. I started in kind of customer support and worked my way up from being a specialist in a pretty small team, the first kind of customer support team outside of the US, to growing out that team, becoming a manager, building a team in the rest of Europe as well, in Berlin, Dublin, and then building out a team in Korea, in China, and then starting to manage managers and becoming a senior manager and kind of joining that senior leadership group in 2019 when everything was a little bit more challenging at WeWork. I had a choice. I could have easily moved on and found another challenge, but I did decide to stay and support my team and look at kind of moving from hyper growth into how to properly scale support, looking at BPO, looking at knowledge management, looking at automation, all of those things to kind of bring the team into a more comfortable place. And when I left, I feel like handed things over in very capable hands and in a much more stable place. Yeah.
That's excellent. That sounds like such a fantastic progression route for you. We all love WeWork as well.
Yeah, it is a really fantastic company. I still say that now. I think that it has so much more room to grow, just especially with the way people are working now, just having that flexibility to go to an office more on an ad hoc basis rather than being in every single day. It's just so much easier to have co-working spaces.
It is definitely. We are on the lookout for a new WeWork around London. So I'll have to get your input on some smashing ones to look out for.
Absolutely.
I have heard great things about the culture there as well. I know this isn't about WeWork, but loads of people from my old home, Virgin Active, have moved on to WeWork and stayed there because it is just that lovely culture that they've been used to at Virgin and now have again at WeWork. It's so nice to be able to find that because not everyone does.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just really, really a great place to work. Yeah.
So we've been singing the praises of WeWork, but you have also been having an absolutely fantastic time at Figma, and you've been able to take all these learnings that you've gathered and come in fresh and apply them at Figma.
Yeah. I mean, what a fantastic place to work again. I feel very fortunate. It was such an interesting one where, I knew a little bit about the product before joining because my fiance is actually a UX designer using the platform every day. And then I also had an ex co-worker from WeWork that kind of introed me to the company and kind of was encouraging me for some time to move there. And what's great about it, I think, as well, is that you speak to the customers and they're so passionate about Figma and about the tools. So, yeah, that's pretty special, I think, for a SaaS company. I feel like there's always some complaints or, there's some things around, especially design software, where it can be difficult to use. But for the most part, the customers love Figma and they love using it. And I think to your point about, I guess, like how I've kind of been able to move there and kind of make my stamp, I think still plenty more to learn and kind of develop there, but really enjoyed it so far. And I feel like I'm already making an impact, which is really nice after only a few months.
That is wonderful. So it is obviously a super powerful, complex platform. So the queries and things that you're going to get coming into support will be super complex, a lot of them, or they will be quite segmented into different types of tickets. How did you identify the need to split your support team into specialised teams?
I think, like a lot of kind of startups or smaller companies, you often start out with customer support as a kind of general specialist group of people that are, just have to kind of learn every aspect of it and support any type of customer. And with a company that's hyper growth, you're going to get more types of customers with different, more specialized needs. You're going to get with that kind of a lot of knowledge that's going to be from more tenured customer support agents. And oftentimes it's difficult to keep up with that. And to also, when those employees eventually move on, being able to keep that knowledge for every single specialist at the same level just isn't realistic. So yeah, I think that was a big part of it, just thinking about not just the types of customers that we have, ever evolving, having more kind of enterprise companies like Google, BT, Uber, other huge companies using Figma day to day, but also having very different types of inquiries that require different skill sets. Yeah, I think that's been a big part of the evolution. It's continuing to evolve as well. We're, I think, just getting started with that.
Yeah, that is so true, what you've just said about support agents being kind of generalists initially. Certainly when I was a support agent, when the phone rings or you get a ticket come through, you have no idea whatsoever what is going to be on the other side. You could have someone in my industry asking about a guest pass or a cancellation. Could be someone screaming at you for something that's completely out of your control, because you do get those in any industry, unfortunately. So that makes total sense that you're taking the knowledge and you're applying it in the best way in specialized groups so that the people who are dealing with those ticket types can do so really, really well. So what does this specialized segmentation look like now? How does that work exactly?
Yeah, so I won't go into every single specialized team because we do have quite a few, but just to give you kind of a bit of an insight. So my example just now on enterprise, we do have specialized team looking at, okay, these are our larger organizations, they have specific requirements and maybe something like higher security or maybe specific expectations when it comes to first reply time as well that we need to adhere to. So thinking about that side of things. We also have a growing need for support for engineers as well, because a lot of the time our UX designers are putting together a design, sharing it directly with an engineer and developers, and they have specific questions about how to implement that or what's going on and how to kind of replicate that in their app or their website. So with that in mind, we've actually been hiring specialists within customer support with some coding knowledge and background. And that's been really useful because if you think about it, they can then communicate really easily with the engineering customers, but also with our own internal engineers as well. If there is a bug or unexpected behavior, we can kind of replicate that really easily and then kind of escalate that quite quickly.
That's fantastic. So they can speak that shared language and then develop that trust and that sort of relationship between the customers and also their colleagues.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's such a huge value for the rest of the team as well, because if they're getting inquiries that maybe aren't at that level where it's a bug or it's unexpected behavior, if they have a bit of that background, they can easily give some troubleshooting steps internally and say, hey, have you tried doing this and this and this? And probably we'll get to resolution without even having to escalate. Yeah.
Yeah, it does make a difference. And it's not as if you're going to be taking all of your agents and training them on basic coding and things like that, but having that bit of knowledge in the background can really, really help on day-to-day situations.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So in terms of applying this in practice, is this through sort of tags being applied? Is this through the customer putting what type of inquiry it is and then it being sort of routed to the agent with the relevant skill set?
Yeah. So we basically have kind of facing taxonomy to try and kind of automatically route the right requests to the right support teams. Of course, it's not perfect. If you have any kind of categorization that's designed to be completed by the customer, there's going to be room for error. And so we do a lot of kind of internal triage from those requests. We're often getting a request into one queue and then placing it into another queue. But for the most part, it's working well, and we're able to basically get back to each inquiry a little bit faster because they're routing to a team that can handle that request and has the knowledge and expertise to reply quickly.
That is fantastic. And that's such a simple way of doing it as well. Just adding a little question onto the customer's ticket or inquiry form. That's a really good way of just doing it without having to complicate the situation further for your agents. So what kind of results have you seen from this approach in segmenting your support tickets and segmenting your agents?
I think we've seen pretty instant results really just over the course of implementing specialization. I think going back to where we were in the past, even prior to me joining Figma, just having, just a larger backlog and not knowing necessarily exactly where to capacity plan. When you have those specialized teams, it's easy to look at the volume and say, okay, we need some more people, we need some more resources to dedicate to this area. Going back to the results though, I'd say definitely our SLA, first reply time, these things have been positively impacted. I think too, going back to expectations from enterprise and more mature companies, they have expectations around when we should kind of first get back to them, and better matching those expectations, we're going to improve CSAT. So we've seen that in our results, just in less kind of in the trends around, my request is taking too long to get back to, and having more notes just around, what the agent was like or what their resolution was, which is what you want really.
So you've brought down your response time and improved your CSAT since specialising your team in this way.
Exactly. Yes.
And you've only been here 8 months.
Yeah. I mean, plenty was happening before I joined, but very happy to be part of that journey. And yeah, I think that focus has been there definitely for myself working with the team. And I think it's when it becomes less daunting, when you just don't have like a kind of endless backlog and just one queue to work from with loads of different types of questions, it's easier for specialists to feel like, actually, this job is achievable. I can get through what I've got in my queue and I can get back to these customers and I can find the resources that I need in order to resolve these questions.
Absolutely. If you've just got this one huge backlog of all different types of tickets all mashed together, you're going to have people who have sent you a super, super simple query up here and someone with something that's super important who maybe should be getting first treatment way down here. And then you're going to have more upset on the person that's down here that you really don't want. So that is a really good way of doing it. And you raised an interesting point there about people coming to you and saying, my ticket's taking too long to resolve, no one's getting back to me. If someone's not getting a reply, they will send another query. And then that's just pushing that ticket volume even higher, reducing that response time for other people even more. So many areas this can feed into.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then if you don't have the visibility and, you don't have any kind of analysis of that queue, then to your point, definitely duplicate requests, definitely a lack of prioritization, those kind of things are just going to get worse.
Definitely. Optimizing support process is obviously something that every support leader wants to be able to do well, and while maintaining high CSAT, good SLAs, good KPIs for their agent. What advice would you have specifically for other SaaS organizations who are looking to optimize their support structure?
I guess some of this will be repetitive, but I think investing really early in knowledge management, I think, is one of the first things to focus on when it comes to customer support. It can feel like you can just rely on agents that are super knowledgeable and have been around a long time and have a lot of knowledge of the company. But those specialists, they're only going to eventually move into other roles or on, and you'll have those big gaps when you onboard people or be relying too heavily on specific agents to help kind of educate when we have people onboarding. So yeah, I think documentation and knowledge management, especially when you get to the point in a customer service team where you're thinking about scaling long term, having those things in place. And then, yeah, I think also thinking about automation too. That's something that I think we're thinking about a lot. And that's something I've worked at with WeWork previously on that's really helped. And thinking about tech ticket deflection is a big part of that. So you're not just constantly growing your volume, growing your team, and just endlessly kind of adding to the issues. And then I think this whole theme of this podcast as well of building those foundational teams. I think it's never too early to specialize, really. Even if you've got a team of 10 specialists, you can start to think about, okay, we're getting a lot of inquiries that are billing related. Let's have a couple of agents that know everything billing, work on the documentation on the side as well, and build out macros, build out some canned responses to make those things easier. And then segmenting your team to be a kind of tier 1, tier 2, and kind of growing from there really helps, I think, a lot. And then also just creating a positive culture of making it okay to ask questions and, making, I think, fun in the workplace as well, just having fun and creating a space of openness and trust. I think you're ultimately going to have happier specialists and happier customers.
Definitely. Never underestimate fun in the workplace.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got people who are customer facing. You don't want your customer to call and the person pick up the phone on the other end just be really audibly not very happy or motivated. Obviously, we're all going to have those days,
Yeah.
but anything you can do to help people, because it's the hard job, is never enough.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting at Figma, we have an official/non-official value, which is play. And I love that. I think, it's such a fun tool if you actually play around with either FigJam as just whiteboarding or use Figma as a designer. There's so many fun little quirks around it, and the way it's designed is very playful. I think we should bring that into our day-to-day, and I think Figma as a company is very good at doing that for general employees, but it's definitely something I bring into my team day-to-day too.
That's awesome. And you raised something really important there as well about making sure your knowledge center is well built up from the beginning. And that can help you so much in the long run.
Exactly. And I think more and more I'm seeing the customer reaction when people have access to information before they raise a request. They're happier overall. They can, already resolve something themselves. And that's really, gives them a lot of satisfaction as well. So.
Definitely. I need to look for help daily when I use HubSpot, when I'm trying to build a report or filter through information that someone before me has set up that I can't quite understand why it's there or what it's doing. And their support setup is excellent, because not only does it pull through information that's relevant, if you need an actual human, they are there. It's such a seamless process.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you've got to a really good place now with your specialisation within your team. What are your goals for 2023?
I guess personally, it's quite a big year for me. I'm getting married later this year. So
Oh,
yeah, very
congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, so that's obviously a bit of a focus too. But I think, yeah, professionally, going back to what we were talking about with play and making fun in the workplace and bringing that element to the team. I really want the team to have that connection, to feel empowered to use the tools kind of as designers in a way. So dog feeding the product in our meetings and getting to kind of, yeah, just really dig into the product and have fun with it. There's something that we have at Figma called Maker Week, which happens a couple of times a year, where basically all the employees stop doing what they're doing for a week to completely focus on building out different things within Figma and kind of coming up with fun, creative projects. And many of them have become actually part of the way the platform works. If you look at, for example, FigJam, a lot of the stickers there are actually designed in Maker Week by employees, just randomly when they've given the chance to have that kind of creative space. So I really want that for my team and, to just, yeah, get into the product and have fun and for that to be kind of a part of their growth as well.
That sounds so valuable to them being able to learn about the product from a customer perspective. I've heard it the other way around. I had Valeria Cast from Printify on an episode, and she says they have a Meet Your Customer Week where people from other departments come and sit down in customer support and actually deal with tickets and see what it's like day to day. And they learn so much. But that's amazing doing it the other way around as well.
Yeah, that's actually similar at WeWork. There was quite a lot of leaders at senior level that would get involved and were really interested in replying to requests or getting on the phones and really cared a lot about that element of things too. So that's awesome to hear that that's practiced elsewhere. But yeah, I think that because Figma is a collaborative tool and because there is so much to learn, there's just a lot to explore and have fun with. And I think that that's at the core of Figma as a brand and as a product.
That's all so nice. And it sounds like you're having a fantastic time at Figma and doing some really cool things as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's been such a great experience. It's always a bit daunting, I think, joining a company when you've been at one place for a long time, but I feel like Figma really does a good job of making people feel really welcome and empowering people to be their best selves, basically.
It sounds totally lovely, and the product itself is lovely as well, so it makes sense that that's represented in the inner working. So yeah, if you are a designer or you're interested in creative tools, check out Figma. And thank you so much, Emma, for coming on the podcast. It's been really, really lovely to chat with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bryony, for having me. It was really lovely and very easy to chat somehow. So
Oh, I love